धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए माली सींचे 100 घड़ा ऋतु आए भल होए। चिंता ऐसी डाकनी काट कलेजा खाए वैद बेचारा क्या करे कहाँ तक दवा लगाए। धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए माली सींचे 100 घड़ा ऋतु आए फल होए। धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए माली सींचे 100 घड़ा ऋतु आए फल होए। बात पर घबराए बीच रात में उठता है कब होगा। बात बात पर घबराए बीच रात में उठता है कब होगा ये दिन भर सोच निकलता है। धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए माली सींचे 100 घड़ा ऋतु आई फल होए। धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए माली सींचे 100 घड़ा ऋतु आई फल होए। होए ऋतु आई फल होए ऋतु आई फल होए ऋतु आई फल ऋतु आई
आवे तेरी जुगनी हाय सोने आवे तेरी जुगनी हाय दिल आवे तेरी जुगनिया
थोड़ी सी बातें अनकही रह गई यूं ही जिंदगी चलती रही ज़बां क्यों बोलते बोलते रुक गई कई दफा क्यों थम गई और कैसे मैं कहूँ जब तू हो रूबरू मेरी फिक्र में तू हर जिक्र में तू रहता ख्यालों में ये सबको है पता तू कैसे रह गया अनजान मेरी फिक्र में तू हर जिक्र में तू रहता ख्यालों में नादां थे दूरियां देख के अनदेखी करी दरारें ना भरी बढ़ सी गई मरम्मत की चाहतों में उलझे रहे दरारें ना भरी बढ़ती रही और कैसे मैं कहूँ जब तू हो रूबरू मेरी फिक्र में तू हर जिक्र में तू रहता ख्यालों में ये सबको है पता तू कैसे रह गया अनजान मेरी फिक्र में तू हर जिक्र में तू रहता ख्याल में जब तू हो रूबरू मेरी फिक्र में तू हर जिक्र में तू रहता ख्याल में
रेतरा धोरा मारा घर जी रोजाना बदले मारा घर जी रेतरा धोरा मारा घर जी रोजाना बदले मारा घर जी एक जगह कोणी टिके रे पवनर माथे छे मारा घरजी कदी आवो तो दिखावा थाने फिर उठो तो मनावा थाने मुकी करो प्रेमी वाचनार इच्छा मादोन्या को दूर छेगा वाचनारिचा मादोन्या को दूर छेगा उकी याद जो आवे लागे सब खारो प्रीत में होयो जी मोतो बंजारो जोगीरो भेस बनायो जोगण ने ढूंढन आयो जद अपनो आप मिटायो तब जोगण ने पायो कदी आओ तो दिखावा थाने फिर उठो तो मनावा थाने मुकी करो प्रेमी वाचनारीचा मादोन्या दूर छेगा मुकी करो प्रेमी वाचनारीचा मादोन्या दूर छेगा
I would like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of the Darug people. The Darug people are the traditional owners of this land. We also acknowledge the past and present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside within this area.
I would like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of Darug people. The Darug people are the traditional owners of this land. We also acknowledge the past and the present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside within this area.
I would like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of the Darug people. The Darug people are the traditional owners of this land. We also acknowledge the past and the present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside within this area.
I would like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of the Darug people. The Darug people are the traditional owners of this land. We also acknowledge the past and the present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside within this area.
8:11 हुए हैं. टुडे इज़ द 23rd ऑफ नवंबर. 23 नवंबर 2023 है और ये दिस इज़ द 259th एपिसोड. 259 एपिसोड्स हो चुके हैं. 200 मतलब 60 से एक कम एपिसोड्स हो चुके हैं कहते सुनते के. एंड हर थर्सडे नाइट को हम लोग ये शो करते हैं 8 से लेकर 10 बजे तक सिडनी टाइम पर. मैं हूं मनबीर सिंह कोहली और प्रोग्राम का नाम है कहते सुनते. और पिछले मंडे मॉर्निंग यानी संडे नाइट मंडे मॉर्निंग को बहुत सारे इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम के सपोर्टर्स का दिल टूटा. इंडिया में तो ऑफ कोर्स पूरे इंडिया का दिल टूटा. मोर देन 1 बिलियन पीपल एंड ऑफ कोर्स अराउंड द वर्ल्ड जो भी इंडियन क्रिकेट को सपोर्ट करते हैं उनका दिल टूटा. तो आज हम लोग इस कार्यक्रम में थोड़ी देर में वी विल बी टॉकिंग टू 3 पीपल सिडनी से अबाउट व्हाट वेंट रॉन्ग, क्राउड बिहेवियर कैसा था वगैरह वगैरह, क्योंकि क्राउड बिहेवियर हैज़ कम डाउन फॉर सम क्रिटिसिज्म. तो उसके ऊपर बात होगी और जनरली कि क्रिकेट में क्या हो रहा है एट्सेट्रा. सो it's a very interesting conversation. Sanjay Khanna Sydney से, Zico Gonzalez Sydney से, and Patrick Baum, he's from the South Coast. So तीनों क्रिकेट के शौकीन और काफ़ी अच्छी नॉलेज रखते हैं क्रिकेट के बारे. एंड ऑफ कोर्स मुझे थोड़ी बहुत जानकारी है. तो मैं आई विल बी टॉकिंग, मैं मनबीर सिंह कोहली. तो सो अगर आपको क्रिकेट में इंटरेस्ट है तो यू मस्ट लिसन टू दैट डिस्कशन. अगर आपको शौक नहीं है क्रिकेट का तो मैं ये बोलूँगा कि आप जाएं, कुछ कपड़े वपड़े धोएं, चाय पिएं, बाहर घूम के आएँ, बिकॉज दिस इज गोइंग टू बी अ ग्रेट कॉन्वर्सेशन. तो आई मीन वी आर रनिंग अ पोल. आर यू सैड एट इंडियाज लॉस ऑफ द मेंस वर्ल्ड कप फाइनल्स? एंड यूल बी सरप्राइज्ड बट 17% लोग कह रहे हैं येस अ लॉट, येस अ बिट, another 17%, नो कह रहे हैं 17%, एंड 50% लोग कह रहे हैं दे आर हैप्पी अबाउट ऑस्ट्रेलिया विनिंग. ओके, सो अब तक के जो स्कोर्स ये हैं कि 50% जो हमारे लिसनर्स हैं अब और जिसमें से अब तक जिन्होंने रिस्पॉन्ड किया है वो कह रहे हैं कि दे आर हैप्पी अबाउट ऑस्ट्रेलिया विनिंग. ओके, आई एम हैप्पी अबाउट ऑस्ट्रेलिया विनिंग. आई वाज सपोर्टिंग द ऑस्ट्रेलियन क्रिकेट टीम, लेकिन ऑफ कोर्स आई वाज शॉक्ड कि इंडिया हार गया, क्योंकि मुझे कभी भी नहीं लगा कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया विल विन द वर्ल्ड कप, क्योंकि मुझे लगा इंडिया ही जीतेगा, क्योंकि द वे दे वर गोइंग इट वाज अमेजिंग. एंड दिस इज बाय फार वन ऑफ द बेस्ट टीम्स जो इंडिया की है, लेकिन उसके बावजूद दे कुड नॉट डू इट. सो आई वाज वेरी शॉक्ड एंड बट हैप्पी कि भाई ऑस्ट्रेलिया वन. एंड सुमन माथुर जी हैज जॉइंड अस एंड वी बीन जॉइंड बाय नीरज नंदा जी जो इस कार्यक्रम का हिस्सा है. क्रिस मल्लिका भद्रा, शी इज ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ दिस प्रोग्राम. और उसके पहले देख रहे थे कई सारे और लोग. तो यहाँ पे मेरे पास नाम मिसिंग है, आई एम सो सॉरी. मानसी गांधी भी थी उसमें एंड और भी. अगर आप लोग देख रहे हैं तो बताइएगा कि आप देख रहे हैं यूट्यूब पर. आई गॉट सुमित कोहली. सुमित एक बड़ी खुफिया जगह पे बैठ के प्रोग्राम सुन रहे हैं. सुमित, आई होप यू आर डूइंग वेल. सुमित इज़ द टेक्निकल ब्रेन्स बिहाइंड दिस शो एंड वो कहीं पे आजकल छुप के ये कार्यक्रम सुन रहे हैं. सो अगर आप लोग इस पोल में पार्ट लेना चाहें तो प्लीज डू, बिकॉज 50% पीपल आर सेइंग दे आर हैप्पी दैट ऑस्ट्रेलिया वन. ओके, तो वो डिस्कशन होगी थोड़ी देर में. मैं एक गीत प्ले करूंगा, उसके बाद मैं आई ब्रिंग द 3 संजय खन्ना, Zico Gonzalez and Patrick Baum, and it's a very good conversation. बड़ी अच्छी balanced conversation है और उसको मैं moderate कर रहा हूँ. And और क्या, yes of course फिर नीरज नंदा जी भी होंगे. He'll bring the Australian and the Indian news, and फिर क्रिस मल्लिका भद्रा भी आएंगी. और उसके बीच में मैं आपके comments का इंतज़ार करूँगा. Please do let me know what you're thinking, कि आपके और दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है. और अगर आप कुछ कमेंट्स करना चाहें अबाउट दिस लॉस, जो इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम का बहुत बड़ा लॉस हुआ है. बट आई पर्सनली फील दैट इंडिया शुड हैव वन दैट, क्योंकि दे वर डूइंग सो वेल. बट अगेन वो दैट इज ऑस्ट्रेलिया, वो हमेशा ही दे कैन बाउंस बैक एंड दे बीन डूइंग दैट फॉर ईयर्स. सो यप, एंड सो बताइएगा कि आप लोग क्या सोचते हैं अबाउट दैट मैच. हो सकता है आप परवाह भी ना करते हो, एंड दैट्स ओके. जैसे सुमन माथुर ने मुझे कहा कि भाई मुझे कम इंटरेस्ट है क्रिकेट में, तो शी विल बी लिसनिंग एंड नॉट लिसनिंग. सो आई टोटली सिंपथाइज विद यू. आई अंडरस्टैंड दैट सुमन. और बट क्या करें, आई एम इंटरेस्टेड इन क्रिकेट. और अभी 57% पीपल आर सेइंग दे आर हैप्पी अबाउट ऑस्ट्रेलिया विनिंग, and only about 42% people are saying yes, that they are sad or they don't care. लेकिन 57% लोग कह रहे हैं they are happy about Australia winning. Okay, हो सकता है शायद ये सब ऑस्ट्रेलिया में बैठे हैं हम लोग इसलिए क्योंकि हम लोग we love the Australian cricket team. They are very talented. और हम लोग बंट जाते हैं कि भाई ऑस्ट्रेलिया को सपोर्ट करें और शुड वी सपोर्ट इंडिया. We get confused in that. And but this year I decided Australia, and I thought, nah, they can't win it. They are the underdogs, but they came up from behind and they took the cup away. So all that is going to happen on the show. Anytime you want to join the show, Sanjay Khanna ji has joined us on YouTube. जैसे मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ, this program is live on 89.3 FM in Sydney. You can listen to it on TuneIn. You can listen to it on Community Broadcasting Association of Australia's app. You can listen to us live on Facebook. You can listen to us live on YouTube. Watch and listen. And थोड़ी देर में हम लोग Twitter पे भी live होने की कोशिश करेंगे. Not today, but in a few weeks time. So जहाँ पे भी आप बोलेंगे, we will be live there. आप लोग देख रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं कहते सुनते. मैं मनबीर सिंह कोहली हूँ. आप कौन हैं बताइए, और आप कहाँ पे देख रहे हैं इस कार्यक्रम को, और बहुत सारी और भी बातें होंगी. सो अगर आपको क्रिकेट में अच्छी दिलचस्पी है तो प्लीज़ डू कीप लिसनिंग. नहीं तो थोड़ी देर के लिए यू कैन डू समथिंग एल्स एंड यू कैन कम बैक. बट इट्स अ वेरी इंटेंस डिस्कशन. उसको मैंने स्प्लिट किया है 2 हिस्सों में. तो या तैयार रहिए. आप लोग देख रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं कहते सुनते, और मैं हूं मनबीर सिंह कोहली.
रे तेरा धोरा मारा घर जी, रोजाना बदले मारा घर जी. रे तेरा धोरा मारा घर जी, रोजाना बदले मारा घर जी. एक जगह कोणी टिके रे, पवनर माथे छे मारा घर जी. कदी आओ तो दिखावा थाने, फिर उठो तो मनावा थाने. मुकी कर रो प्रेमी वाचनार इच्छा, मादोन्या को दूर छेगा. वाचनारिचा मादोन्या को दूर छेगा. उकी याद जो आवे लागे सब खारो, प्रीत में होयो जी मो तो बंजारो. जोगीरो भेस बनायो, जोगण ने ढूंढन आयो. जद अपनो आप मिटायो, तब जोगण ने पायो. कदी आओ तो दिखावा थाने, फिर उठो तो मनावा थाने. मुकी कर रो प्रेमी वाचनार इच्छा, मादोन्या को दूर छेगा. मुकी कर रो प्रेमी वाचनार इच्छा, मादोन्या को दूर छेगा.
So Sunday night, which is Monday morning in Sydney, 1.3 billion people's hearts were broken. And this was the final of the International Cricket World Cup of the so I'm getting my facts mixed up because I'm also choking, but the ICC Men's World Cup that India lost to Australia in a well-deserved win by Australia. So India had an sort of relentless win. They won 10 out of 10 games. And this was the final game in which they had a chance to win the World Cup. But unfortunately, that is the day when Australia dominated. They won that game, and with it, they've taken the cup home. So this broke a lot of Indian fans' hearts, and I could see that. And so to talk about that, I've got Zico, who lives in Sydney, Sanjay Khanna, and who's also from Sydney, and Patrick, who's somewhere in the South Coast. So welcome and thank you, gentlemen, for agreeing to talk to me about this.
Thank you.
So
Thanks, maybe.
just a quick introduction so that Zico, starting with you.
Hi, Zico Gonzalez, living in Sydney. I've been in Sydney for about 16, 17 years now. A huge cricket fan. India is my favorite, and Aussies are my second favorite.
Like all of us. Thank you. Sanjay?
I am Sanjay. I think another name would be heartbroken at this stage. So yeah, I live in Sydney as well, like Zico, and I've been in Sydney for 20 years. Cricket lover, cricket enthusiast, Indian cricket team I follow, and I also follow other teams. So I saw a lot of other matches as well in the current World Cup. Was up till 4 o'clock in the morning to watch other matches as well.
I must confess, I used to watch the first innings, go to sleep. Then next day, in the night, I would keep checking the scores, but then next day I'd watch the catch up. And so that's how I saw all the games. What about you, Patrick? Obviously, you're gloating. You're not.
I wouldn't say gloating. Obviously, an Australian cricket fan. Certainly very proud of what I think any Australian these days would consider the hardest thing to do. Win against India in India, and particularly a moment like that. Sort of like winning in the West Indies, 30 years ago or something like that. So yeah, very proud of the team, obviously, but I don't know if I'd go so far as gloating.
Okay, so thanks, Sanjay. What do you think went wrong in that game? Why did India lose? What's your reading? Because I know that everybody's a cricket expert after the game.
Yes. Yeah, everybody is a cricket expert, and I don't call myself an expert. I'm still learning how it swings, why it swings, what happens. So I'm still learning after so many years, after 40 years of following cricket. But why India lost? It's a very hard question. So there's a number of factors, but my reading, and I wrote on Facebook, you must have read that post. I think it comes down to big game experience. I think Australia had 6 or 7 members who have a lot of big game experience. India probably somewhere down the line, overconfidence, maybe. I'm not saying that it was there, but I think it was confidence that they thought will carry them forward. So strategy and planning was secondary. Confidence, probably they thought they were playing well. They stick to the same strategy, same plans, but it's a different opposition. It's a different pitch. It's different conditions. So I think that's where probably that could have been. I shouldn't say that is because I'm not expert, but that could have been somewhere where India went wrong probably.
And if you put the Aussies into the picture, Zico, why do you think the Aussies won?
Yeah, I was just about to say that rather than saying what went wrong, I would say what went right for Aussies, because what they did was, as Pat Cummins, and I'm not an expert, as Sanjay sir said as well earlier. What I know is the boys and the thinking, the mindset, and the coaches, because I talked to a lot of coaches around. So what I think is Patty read the pitch very well a day before. There were some photos clicked on Facebook and talking about Patty reading the pitch and things like that. But I really think the mindset, the execution, the planning for each and every Indian player went really well for Aussies. That's one thing I really know. And that was missing when Australia started the World Cup. They lost few matches initially. I think that was really missing. And I could see that on the field as well from David Warner versus Steve Smith. They were not really in the game. And that's when the whole momentum started to flow. I think these are the things that we need to fix. And that's what they did all the way from there and just went right all the way.
So Patrick, I know because the Australians have won, so everything's obviously worked for them. Why do you think the Indians lost? I'd like you to.
Look, I think this is all about tournament play, and it was really a perfect storm for India. It was, I think you always see in these tournaments, it's so often a team that struggles early on that ends up winning, and that has those tough games and those hard games to fight through. And of course, that's not India's fault. They couldn't, force the teams they were playing to play better, or for them to be less dominant. But I think, I think of so many examples. Go over to American football. The only team that ever had a perfect season lost the Super Bowl. I think also the Australians getting Travis Head, Mitch Marsh coming in, their team changed a lot during the period of the tournament, whereas the Indian team, of course, didn't change because it was performing, so well, and they never had to go to Plan B. And I think that was the really big problem in the final, is that when they didn't know how to go to Plan B, and I think they were just, a little too slow in those middle overs, didn't really push as hard as they needed to do. Obviously, they want to make sure they made a score, but I think, again, as Sanjay said, that big tournament experience, half of the Australian team had won a World Cup before, and they were the underdog. That helps too. There's always less pressure when you're the underdog. So I think no one would look at this tournament and not say India were the best team, or all over across the whole tournament. But it's about that final game on that final day.
So two things.
Just like to add.
Sorry, go on, Sanjay.
Just like to add, Patrick just reminded me, the punchline of this tournament was, all it takes is one day. That says it all.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about. So two things. One is, like Patrick said, because Australia was the underdogs, they didn't have the pressure. So they did not pressure themselves. They were not under anything to prove that, we got to prove it to 1.3 billion people that we can do it. So that might have led to some self-sabotaging that maybe the Indian cricket team did, and which is, again, in the end, it's a battle of nerves. So I would suggest that's another thing that's worked. And also I find it very unfair that you win 10 games, and just because you lose one, you've lost the cup. I'd be happy if it was the best of 3, for example. That would give me more satisfaction and say, all right, this was decidedly a better team. Somebody who's 1 out of 3. But so it's quite unlucky that you've done well. It's like going into an examination. You've studied well, you've done everything. On that day, you fall sick. What happens then? So it's quite unfortunate. That's what happened. But I personally think, now please tell me if I'm wrong, that because this was home, because of that success factor, in the Indian players put all that extra pressure, and you could see the frustration coming out when you could see somebody as cool, I thought, like Bumrah, flicking the bails off, or after the loss throwing things into the dugout. So is that something that the home advantage can become a disadvantage? Zico, what do you think?
Well, we are playing in front of 1.3 billion. Remember that. And everyone's cheering. There was 1.3 sea of blue people up there. So losing in front of them obviously is not a good sign. Everybody spends so much money to be there to support the team. Losses were like, as Ricky Ponting said earlier, like, boys, just go there and play your game. Don't worry about the sea of blue or whatever you're talking about. Just forget everything. Just imagine the stadium is empty and you're playing against 11 guys. So I really like that attitude. I really like the statement. And I think that's what Aussies were very good at. They didn't think of any other thing. They just went there, played the best cricket they could. And I think on the other side, with Indians, I think it was more of the whole 1.3 billion people's pressure. And they also lost a lot of energy. I could see some of the fielders were not running good enough. That's just my personal perspective on that. I think there was one where Surya Kumar was running and he stopped and he started running again. I'm like, well, hold on, this is World Cup final. You just can't, live like that. So I think there was a lot of people were losing energy in the end, and they were just giving up. Like that's it. I think Travis Head has taken the game to the next level, but we're not going to do more than this.
Like in the first over, or so, was it Warner's shot that Shubman Gill, didn't even attempt to catch it through the slips, and I thought, what happened there? We were all
those things. Yeah, those kind of things happen because the ball is quick. You're not expecting, and also the fielders were, I think the fielders were not placed properly. That's just the first slip was very close to the keeper. Normally there's a balance between that. I'm not sure why that happened, but yeah, I think Shubman Gill must have had a brain freeze or whatever. I'm not sure, but yeah, he should have attempted, or someone should have attempted. Maybe Kohli, I think, was on the other side.
They just stood there.
Yeah,
like you said,
I think they were just having a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, even on the boundary, like you said, he was running. He should have maybe jumped, or like that Travis Head catch. That's going to go down in history as one of the finest, and that was a turning point, I think. So it's as everybody's saying now that the Aussies stopped, say, about 20 to 30 runs on the boundary, and that's equal to about a couple of wickets. So that's very clever, and as somebody said, that they were desperate. They were showing their desperation in the fielding. What about you, Sanjay? What do you think? Why do you think it's a psychological thing that India sort of worked against?
I think a few players in the team are very, they have played under pressure, like Rohit Sharma, Kohli. I can't say that for them. Obviously, there's other players which are new, Shreyas Iyer, Shubman Gill. I'm just taking examples. They haven't played at this stage before. So definitely pressure would have come to them. I can't believe that the pressure would have come to Rohit or Virat. Jasprit Bumrah, you mentioned specifically. I think when they saw that it was going out of their hand, that's when he started losing. It's not the crowd pressure. It was just the pressure of, as I said before, they had taken it as a given that they are the best in this tournament. Come what may, I think they'll overcome everything. They were just caught by surprise by the fielding of Australia, by the bowling. Everything worked for Australia on that day. I'm talking of skills, cricketing skills. Everything worked. And I think India didn't expect that. India was always looking for those chinks in the armor for other teams. They always got that. And on that day, Australia probably didn't allow any gaps, any chinks at all. And that's what caught them unawares. So I think it's a bit of crowd pressure, yes, but it was more so the game itself, how it panned out and how the pitch played and how the toss played and how the Australians played. I think that was more of a reason for them breaking down.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think maybe we're being a bit tough on the Indian side. That the Australian team played very, very, very well on the day, and I think some of that was those world-class players. Pat Cummins, had his best game. David Warner, Steve Smith, all of them, I suppose, really turned up on the day. And sometimes, that just happens. You've got top world-class players that all turn up on the day, and that's just very, very hard to beat for any team of the standard of either Australia or India, or even England. If England had all their players turn up and play their best on the day, which obviously they didn't at any stage during this tournament, they would be very hard to beat.
Yeah, and coming back to Virat Kohli, say Virat, G's up the crowd. He'll say, start clapping, start doing that. So obviously he's deriving energy from there. But on the other hand, that same energy also creates pressure for a lot of people. Say if I was there, I'm not a cricketer in that sense, but I would feel absolutely awed and under pressure that now I've got to perform to the gallery. And when you start doing that, when you're caught in that trap, and obviously that's when you start losing wickets, and and I think a lot of self-inflicted pressure isn't good for any player, where you got to be in the zone, and I think that detracted. Yeah. Anything else? What about the fielding that Australia did? And up till those first 10 games, India's fielding was fantastic too. I haven't seen India faltering. They were great on the outfield. They were great in the close areas. But this time that magic wasn't happening. What do you think could have gone wrong? Patrick, coming to you, what do you think?
Well, and also again, Australia did not field well in the early games, and I think again it's that peaking at the right time. It's that sort of building towards that, and I think obviously I'm not a first class athlete, but it must be very, very hard to play at your best every single game and to keep that kind of so you're gonna have the off game every now and then, and some people are great fielders, some not so great, but no one will field perfectly every single game that they play. Even your Steve Wars and whatever the greats, the fielding greats of the game, will have their off days, and I think part of that was just about momentum. And the Australians were trending in the right direction, and felt good about themselves. I think that's what you say, that inner confidence. They felt good about themselves. No one thought they could win. They all think, well, we're world-class players that'll go down in history. We'll show them, and that turned into a fielding display, I think. And for India, when you've already been performing right at the top level, it's harder to stay up at that top level.
So hunger, I think it's the hunger that you're talking of, Patrick. The Australians had that hunger to prove, to silence the crowd, as Pat Cummins said. So
Absolutely.
it's which might have driven them. And I think the pressure that India self-inflicted might have worked. But I'm an amateur psychologist here. But
talking about pressure, Mandir, I don't think it was that pressure. And look, the 11 players selected from 1.3 billion people. So they just can't say, like, I had pressure on. And Virat Kohli has said in the past as well, our guys are trained enough to handle any kind of pressure. So I don't think pressure was an issue at all. It was just Virat Kohli asking the crowd to cheer so that there's a bit of a noise around.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think there was any kind of pressure on any of the players, in my opinion.
And I've been following, like I said, Indian cricket for a long time. And I've attended a few cricket matches in India. But the way this tournament was organized, if you look at the facilities, they were world-class. All the stadiums were world-class stadiums. The arrangements were world-class. Yes, I've heard some bickering about ticketing and delays, but that doesn't mean anything. But if you look at the organization, it worked like clockwork. There was no problem. The stadiums, in terms of quality, they've been absolutely world-class. The pitches, everything. It worked to a T, and I think this has proven that India can do world-class tournaments, and this will put India into the stead for the Olympics in 2036 that it's aiming for. So a lot of good happened during this, but obviously there were a few aspects of this tournament that the Western press, especially the Australian press, has picked up on crowd behavior. And also the Pakistani cricket control board has complained to the BCCI to the ICC about some crowd behavior. Now, I remember when I was growing up, and television had just come to India in the 70s, and we used to, the first match that I watched was a test match between India and England, where Tony Greig was the captain. And I remember Tony Greig would, be naughty on the field, and people would laugh and cheer. And he was called the darling of the crowds. That's what they said when he visited India in the 1973 or 4, somewhere there, I can't remember. And that time we used to cheer for anybody who played great cricket. And going up to the 90s, I saw that wherever India was playing, if they played in good cricket, the crowd would cheer. Indians, we would cheer for the opposing teams. But somewhere after the 90s, what I saw was the world over, the home crowd only started cheering for their own home teams. And this has gotten worse since the 2000s, I think. And we saw some of the worst behavior of that in say, the India-Pakistan match. And Patrick, I'd like you to be sort of brutally honest and tell me, what do you think of that? What do you think, or am I over-criticizing the Indian audience?
Yeah, in part, I think you are. I think people have always done that. But I think the issue with this World Cup was the lack of international spectators. And there could be there's probably lots and lots of different reasons for that. Some of, out of anyone's control. But I think, the fact that the vast majority of spectators were Indian, no matter who was playing the game, and that you didn't have much of a barmy army, for example, or big crowds of Australian. I think there was a bit less of that international festival kind of spectacle to it, where maybe that it's more good-natured kind of rivalry there. And so when those games did come, those few games where there was a significant proportion of the crowd going for both teams, really strongly going for both teams, that maybe was a bit different. I mean, I wouldn't. I think back in the 70s and 80s there were plenty of badly behaved crowds as well, of people who didn't didn't do good things. I think probably generally just human behaviour has probably got a bit worse with the internet and everything else in the last 20 years as well. So all of that feeds into it. But I suppose I wouldn't be over-critical of the Indian crowds. I think there are obviously some incidents that you'd rather not see, but I think it wasn't that much worse than it might have been in another country.
And I mean, speaking of blue, I think even the SCG or the Melbourne Cricket Ground is more blue than yellow these days. If there's an India-Australia match, there's more blue there too. So, and that's international, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's generally good-natured, that blue and yellow at the MCG or the SCG. That is true.
Yeah, I was going to say stray incidents happened in Sydney also. You'd remember that test match which India and Australia were playing, I think 4 years ago, when Siraj was when Siraj was attacked or whatever, not attacked literally, but you know what I mean. And so there is stray incidents, I would call that. Coming back to we're not talking about those matches now. Coming back to the World Cup, I think any game India plays against Pakistan, it's just not cricket. And we are not talking about other things here, so I know I'll refrain myself from going there, but it becomes much more than that anyway. So I'm not justifying crowd behavior by saying that, but there is a lot more involved, and there's a lot more passion than, let's say, an India versus England or even India versus Australia game when India plays against Pakistan.
Say last year, I went to the Melbourne Cricket Ground, like you might have also been there, and at the T20 when India was playing Pakistan, but it wasn't, I mean, of course, it was quite loud, but we didn't see any of this, so bad behavior. I mean, yeah, of course, there was some pockets of that. But what about you, Zico? You are a younger cohort from the three of us, and you've probably grown up just seeing one, team being supported, the home team.
Talking about crowd, I think India-Pakistan is obviously a different boat itself. Look, as we all know, it's more than just a game for them. And losing to Pakistan, India will never kind of tolerate that sort of thing. So they just want to beat Pakistan regardless. So I think there will be a bit of a booing. So talking about crowd just for that specific match, I don't want to get into any details. But yeah, there will always be issues, regardless of which country you play. Even if tomorrow there's West Indies hosting World Cup and there's India-Pakistan match happening there will be, personally, I don't want to happen, but there will be booing, there will be unnecessary talks about things, getting personal and things like that. So you can't control that, unfortunately. But apart from that, talking about other crowds, I think India was my opinion, they were well behaved. And I didn't see any issues as such. I didn't hear any issues as such where Indian crowds went out of the way booing other players. Even with India-Australia match, there were no such incidents happen, to my knowledge, where they booed Aussie players saying whatever. So, look, I have a very positive feeling. I don't think there is much of, booing is always there. There will be issues, but there are so many stadiums that I've attended in my life, and I don't think there has been many more issues that I've seen. But I think I have a positive attitude towards the crowd.
Like the umpires were booed, at the trophy ceremony. There was no.
Well, that's something. Yeah, well, that wasn't needed. But again, it's the media, it's the internet that drives a lot of things here. I think it was Richard that was booed during the ceremony. That's probably because in 2019 in the semis, he was the umpire where Dhoni got run out. And also, I think there was a bit of a Indian culture thing where they consider them as a negative person, and they just don't want to see him where there's crucial matches. So I think that's a bit of an attitude thing there as well. But again, he's just an umpire. Look, but as we all know,
they gave Steve Smith out, and when he wasn't out, but That's okay. These things happen in a game.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Things happen, but some people just take personally. So
Yeah.
we can't control that.
Okay, so I'll come to that question. And why do we take sport so personally? Now, sport is for fun. It's for building character. It's for physical fitness. When did this happen that we started identifying a sport with patriotism? Like, I live in Australia. I support the Indian cricket team all these years. I go to the SCG. Nobody has told me you shouldn't support the Indians. Yeah. I'm proud to support the Indian cricket team at the SCG. We also sledge the Aussie cricket players, I'm ashamed to say. But nobody's told me you're not Australian. So when did this thing happen that sport became the country? And let's start with Patrick, because obviously we have mixed signals in Australia.
Yeah, look, I think sport is a huge part of the culture of many, many countries across the world. And, Argentina or Brazil with football, many countries, New Zealand with rugby. And it becomes part of the fabric of the culture of that society, of that nation. It's something that everyone knows, everyone talks about. It's something that connects everyone. So while it is just a game, and it doesn't matter nearly as much as all of the other, for example, terrible things that are happening in the world right now. People get incredibly invested in it, and they see it not just as about whether they've won that game. They see it as part of their national identity. Italy not making the World Cup for the last 2 times. That's a sort of national mourning, something that they really take to their heart, and I think that's pretty common across a lot of parts of the world. I think the difference in Australia is that just sport itself is our religion, any sport at all, and we're sort of obsessed with all sports, so we don't narrow it down to one in particular, but we put far too much emphasis on sport. In everything from from when we're born all the way through. If you would step back from that, and it's great in terms of fitness and getting out there and being active, but sometimes I think, as so many other countries do, it becomes it stands in for some of the other things. We think of ourselves as great outback legends, the riding on horses or something like that, when we know we all aren't. In reality, we live our suburban lives in our suburban home, and I think that's it lets people dream a bit, and that's perhaps the case here, and why there was so much sadness over essentially just the Indian team being beaten on one day, having a fantastic tournament and being beaten on one day.
So we got about 2 minutes left to a break in case, but quickly. So Sanjay, and then we'll have a quick break and then we'll come back in. Why do you think sport is a religion in India, or cricket is a religion in India, and how is that a good thing?
Hard question to say whether it's good or bad. See, I started playing cricket when I was probably 5 years. Zico must have also started doing that. And that was the only sport we played regularly. I also played hockey at school, but I don't know why. I am now trying to think. Today I'll have to reflect back on why I played cricket more than hockey when there was an opportunity. At least I was fortunate enough in my school to have an opportunity to play football, soccer, to play hockey, but I started leaning towards cricket. Probably we see a lot of cricket around us, and that's what it becomes like a mass game. So whether it's good or bad, I think what we see in those players, which we see on the field, we see that what we couldn't do. We all wanted to be good players or whatever. To some extent, we wanted to. When we see these players play, we get those bragging rights against other countries. So if they play well, we get to brag. And now what Patrick said, I'm just stepping down back 1 minute when Patrick said internet. That's what makes it go viral. So on the internet, people are now doing that bragging, and that becomes into more than cricket, and they start arguing and fighting over that. And then it goes into politics and so many other topics. So that's where it becomes bad, if you are saying bad. The good part is, bragging is not bad, but when it goes to other topics, and when you start arguing or arguing about other things, or you start insulting people or doing things on internet which are not unprofessional, using unprofessional whatever language or immature language, I should say, that's where it gets bad. If that makes sense. Sorry, I'm not able to articulate myself very well.
Yeah, let's take a quick break and we'll come back soon. Yeah. So I hope you are enjoying that conversation. Or yep. We've got a few comments coming through during this time. मेरी आवाज आ रही ना ठीक ठाक? Yes, good. So okay, Neeraj Nanda ji ने कहा है, I'm missing that comment now. क्या हो गया ये? So let's see. नहीं. Abha Garga ji कह रही हैं कि Tony Greig was one of the favorite cricketers around that time in India, and yes, you're right. Zahid Jamil कह रहे हैं कि good discussion, cricket is very unpredictable. It was one of those days. True. Excellent stadiums, facilities left very good impression of modern India. Sanjay Deshwal ji from Little India, वो कह रहे हैं कि cricket by chance Australia played better. Indian team had a great run. Sadly, they were not at their best on that day. Let me bring up some more comments जो आई हैं. और अच्छी कमेंट्स थी, और उसमें नीरज नंदा जी का मैं कमेंट पढ़ रहा था, एंड दैट वाज एंड दैट इज आई वुड एग्री विद हिम. एंड वी बीन जॉइन्ड बाय वृशाली जैन फ्रॉम SBS. थैंक यू वृशाली फॉर बीइंग हियर. एंड नीरज जी कह रहे हैं कि व्हाई डिड द इंडियन टीम लीव द ग्राउंड व्हेन ऑस्ट्रेलिया लिफ्टेड द वर्ल्ड कप trophy? This was very rude and unsporting. The lesson, a big crowd and hyper nationalism cannot win a match. On the day, the Australian team showed excellent cricket, including fielding. Finally, the Australian captain did a good job too. Yeah, and Abha Garga ji is agreeing with that. And then Neeraj ji goes on to say the crowd wanted to see India's victory, as that did not happen. All sorts of rude acts took place. The crowd behavior was very bad. Shame. Yeah. एंड या उसके बाद वाली कमेंट्स मैंने पढ़ी हैं. एंड वृशाली कह रही हैं कि आई लाइक पैट्रिक्स डिस्क्लेमर. एंड सनी कह रहे हैं ऑल द गेस्ट्स हैव ग्रेट पॉइंट्स टू शेयर. एंड अभा गार्गिया जी कह रही हैं कि बोथ टीम्स प्लेड वेल ऑन द डे. अनफॉर्चुनेटली इट वाज नॉट इंडियाज़ डे. यप, इट वाज नॉट इंडियाज़ डे. एंड जैसे मैंने कहा कि एक दिन अगर आप ठीक नहीं खेले तो यू कैन लूज द ट्रॉफी. सो दैट्स वेरी सैड दैट वन डे इज़ what decides whether you will win or not. So let's play a little song and then I'll come back and play the second part of that nice discussion. अगर आप लोग ये देख रहे हैं तो अपने दोस्तों को बताइए that we are having this interesting discussion. और ये हम में से ही लोग हैं, कोई these are not सुनील गवास्कर्स एंड ऑल दैट, बट ये हमारे जैसे लोग हैं जिनको बहुत सारी समझ है अबाउट क्रिकेट, एंड कोई दे आर नॉट बायस्ड टुवर्ड्स एनीथिंग एक्सेप्ट इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम. चलिए म्यूजिक थोड़ा, फिर उसके बाद में पार्ट 2 ऑफ द शो.
छोरी देखण लागी क्यों मने तू घूर घूर के, मखानी ढैसी आ जाने न जावे दूर दूर के. हाय तेरी हंसी का दिल मने देख गई घायल, रात ने नींद न आवे मैं तकती हो या पागल. अरे तेरे भी हो या दिखे डोबन का गुरूर से, रजे तू कोई मने घड़िए भावे से तेरी चढ़ी जवानी या दिल में आग लगा वैसे यो दिल तेरे पे पागल बस रह जावे हो बार बार क्यों सोचे तू जान की दूर रहे हो बार बार क्यों सोचे तू जान की दूर रहे रजे तू को ही नूर से मन दिए जरूर से ये तू हुस्ना की रानी यार भी पूरा मसूर से ये तू को ही नूर से मन दिए जरूर से ये तू हुस्ना की रानी यार भी पूरा मसूर से
Yeah, so welcome back from the break. So before this, we were talking about how world over, Patrick said that sport in some countries is identified with a particular sport is identified with that country and their own sense of patriotism, their own sense of belonging with that country, and that's where it goes to, you know, and especially like Sanjay said with the internet, that how internet has exacerbated these differences that people have and has made people angrier, because it could just be a normal conversation. You're having a rib with somebody saying, your team can't play, and then it goes into politics, and then it morphs into a very ugly discussion. It's very disheartening, but I just saw a few tweets, tweeting some obnoxious stuff to Travis Head. And obviously these are one or two people. It's not, the Indians, but I mean, these people seem to be of Indian origin. But that's deplorable behavior. And as you rightly said, Sanjay, this is the internet. It's not the real world. It's the internet world. It's a virtual world. But Patrick, we were talking about in the break, something that you said very interestingly about the umpires and the demonization of the umpires. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, again, this is not a cricket-specific issue. It's a really a global issue with referees and umpires across all sports are being attacked. I know in several sports, long-standing referees retiring, just saying they've had enough, and giving it up and saying, I can't take anymore, because there just is less respect. And I think probably, the online, I imagine most of them can't have a social media profile at all. So again, that doesn't excuse what happened at the World Cup, but again, it's unfortunately, sadly, that it's there's just less and less respect for umpires in general, in any sport.
What do you feel, Sanjay?
I was chatting to Patrick and saying, with my limited time, I don't follow any other sport other than cricket, and I'm happy to say that, because time is limited. I work a full-time job, a part-time job, and then I follow cricket like a part-time job as well. For the last 1 month, I have been following that. So it doesn't leave me much time. So I don't have that experience that Patrick has about umpires. I haven't seen a lot of, when umpires make a few bad decisions, and we were looking at some stats the other day. I think umpires have been getting 90% or 95% decisions correct compared to, those decisions which are given to DRS, and that is good. I think they have been doing a great job. So I haven't seen a lot of booing. Again, this was a highly passionate game. It was the pinnacle of or the top game of the World Cup, the final game. And the fact that there was booing was motivated by other games which have happened in the past, as Zico, I think, or Patrick, or somebody said that. Sorry, I'm sorry. Somebody said that it was more due to the other games where these umpires had officiated. So people have a lot more memory. Again, I'm blaming social media. Sorry to say that, because a lot more memory now because of that. We used to forget those incidents when we were not connected through social media. Now social media flares that up. Actually, one other incident, and I'm not going to relate the full details of that incident, but another incident happened when the Australian players took the trophy inside the hotel, and Mitch Marsh is being blamed for that. And now, come another 4 years, some of the Indian crowd or some of the other crowd also is going to take on Mitch Marsh for that. Now, I don't say whether what he did with the trophy was right or wrong, but what I'm saying here is that internet is going to flare that, and he's going to be in the wrong limelight, or whatever you call that. He's going to be targeted, I should say. So that's what the role that internet plays, and not many people would have done that if internet wasn't there, or if it wasn't due to the social media. Yeah.
But it's also an understanding that people lack the understanding of a culture. For example, the Australian cricket players were drinking out of the shoe, the shoe, which the Indian players will never dream of doing. Now that's a culture.
Most Australians wouldn't do that either, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, and people have done that at the time of war. We saw that recently, where anyway, that was a very ugly incident. But they drank out of a prosthetic limb of the enemy, and but I wouldn't do it. But it's a shui. It's a part of the culture, and Patrick, just to explain to you, say in the Indian culture, we do not touch things with the foot. For example, sacred things like food, for example, or books, because books is knowledge. That's where the goddess Saraswati lives. So you don't touch a book or food with your fate. So it's a cultural difference. While in the Australian culture, it's okay to throw food at each other and have fun. Yeah. So Mitch Marsh relaxing with his feet on top of the of the trophy can offend a lot of sensitivity in India, because that's something that you yearn for, and this has come to them and they're disrespecting it. How can they dare do that? So
yeah, and again, sorry to go back to social media, but when you have these global tournaments, and you'll obviously have different cultures and people who view things completely different ways, but you then have perhaps a lot of people who've never been outside, their own town, wherever it may be, who suddenly have this access to all of this and can talk about it, only from their point of view, but be on the internet and be criticizing people, because it is completely outside the frame of reference of anything that they've known before. And a classic example, again, to another sport, in the Rugby World Cup, one of the South African players said some words in Afrikaans that the English team, in English was an extremely rude thing to say, but it wasn't rude at all in Afrikaans. And these things happen. These things happen, but the internet turns it into, the social media turns it into, something far beyond that.
But we can't excuse that also, because that's where we are living these days. A lot of our lives is lived on social media. So we can't even just minimize that and say, oh, that's not real. No, it is real, because people are getting trolled. People are getting mental health issues because of the internet. What I read about Travis Head being trolled, it's deplorable. But obviously, if Travis Head puts the internet on and sees that tweet, he's going to lose it maybe. I don't know. I lost it. But that's where we live. So these are realities of a time. Okay, so I've complained about behavior. How do we fix this, Sanjay? Any ideas? I know it's a big question, but how do we fix it?
I don't think we can fix the elements that are going to be always immature on social media. What we can do to fix it is, if we see any good, we talk a lot more about it. That's the only way. Sorry, I'm only able to think about that. So we don't talk about the good things a lot, but the sensational, the anything like what happened there. As you talk about the management of this World Cup in India, there were so many good things that happened. I don't think we have talked a lot about those. We have only talked about the bad things. Yeah, so we should talk a lot more. Remember.
Yeah. What do you think, Patrick? How can you make it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think you can't put the genie back in the bottle. That this will continue to happen. But really, as Sanjay said, this was an extremely well-run World Cup with a lot of very exciting games in it. Some outstanding performances from unknown teams like Afghanistan. It was a great tournament. and people will obviously be disappointed when their team, doesn't win or doesn't live up to their expectations. But you just hope that there's one thing, as Sanjay and I both worked for media companies, it's tomorrow's fish and chips. You just hope that when some of the heat comes out of this, that the things that will be remembered a little bit longer, are the successes and how well India did in running the tournament, and how many great games there were, and how really I think it revived one-day cricket. Which is obviously doing very well, still doing well in England, in India, but is not doing well at all in a lot of other parts of the world. And I think it's given a real fillip to the one-day game, and that's got to be a good thing for cricket.
And I think these are great opportunities. Like India had a great opportunity which they capitalized on by being hosts. And I think if every spectator thought these people who've come into our country to watch these games or to play the games are our guests, and we in India, we have a lot of attachment to the idea of a guest. The guest is God. If we go back to our basic message that the Indians believe in, like, for example, if you come to my house, Patrick, now, and I don't have milk in the fridge to offer you a cup of tea, I'll make sure that I borrow that cup of tea from cup of milk from somewhere and make you that tea because you're God. So that's the tradition that Indians have. And I think we need to remember that when we host such matches, we are not the team. We are hosts of the entire world. And I remember last year, we were talking about the T20 World Cup, where I went to watch the India-Pakistan match in Melbourne, and where India won. And there was a bit of controversy with Kohli appealing that, if you remember. And India won. And we were walking back to our cars, and there was these young group of Pakistani supporters. And we were in the car park after the match. They were absolutely sad. And I said, "How are you guys feeling?" And they said, "Oh, very sad. But Kohli is a champion." And just listening to that brought tears to my eyes. And I thought, this is the game that we want to build. Not that Kohli is an enemy, but now he said, what can he do? Kohli is a champion. And that summed up the spirit of cricket to me, I think. I think we need more of that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I just add, Manbir, it's that everyone remembering that you're a fan of cricket. First of all, you're a fan of cricket. You love the game. And then obviously you feel strongly about your national team or whichever team you support. But, and whatever we can do, and Sanjay might have some ideas, but whatever we can do to get people to remember that it's the game that they love, and that's what they should be celebrating.
And focusing on the positives, like Sanjay said, and ignoring the negatives. Yep. Thank you, gentlemen. And Zico's not here, so thank you in absentia to him. But thank you for taking the time out. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I don't know about you, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Manbir.
Thanks, Manbir.
Thank you. So that was the end of that conversation. So thank you, Sanjay Khanna ji, Zico Gonzalez, and of course Patrick Bohm. And मुझे बड़ी अच्छी लगी conversation. और आपका how are you coping with the loss बताइएगा. And अब तक जो results हैं हमारी poll के बड़े interesting हैं. वो poll में अब तक we have say half the people saying yes, they are sad at the loss of the men's World Cup finals by India. Half, yeah, I would say. 44% are sad, a lot, yeah, a bit, but they are sad. They are not happy. And 44% are happy about Australia winning, and 11% don't care. They are not sad about it. Or neither are they happy or sad. So देखेंगे तो आधे लोग. So the poll is still on. अगर आपको इसमें हिस्सा लेना है तो do participate and do tell us. And अगर आपको ये कार्यक्रम अच्छा लगता है तो please tell us. And of course tell your friends. मैं अभी नीरज नंदा जी को लेके आ रहा हूँ, लेकिन I wanted to say something कि कल यानी कि 22 November 2023, which is today. I mean अमेरिका में 22 November आज सुबह नहीं अभी तो 23 हो गई होगी वहाँ पे शायद. So 22 November 1963 was when John Kennedy was shot in Dallas, Texas. 60 साल पहले 60 साल हो गए हैं जॉन कैनेडी की मौत को, और उसमें आज भी उतना ही इंटरेस्ट है इन अमेरिकन पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ कोर्स. दुनिया में भी लोग क्यूरियस हैं, उसमें कंस्पिरेसी थियरीज वगैरह हैं बहुत सारी. बट आई मीन हम लोग जब इंडिया में रह रहे थे उस टाइम पे, वी डिडंट हैव मच कॉन्टैक्ट विद अमेरिका. इट वाज वेरी हार्ड, वी डिडंट नो मच अबाउट, एंड ऑफ कोर्स मतलब आई वाजंट इवन, होश में नहीं था मैं उस टाइम पे. लेकिन एंड अ लॉट ऑफ यू माइट नॉट इवन हैव बीन अराउंड एट दैट टाइम व्हेन जॉन कैनेडी वाज शॉट डेड. बट ये जो ऐसे वाले इंसिडेंट्स होते हैं, ट्रैजिक इंसिडेंट्स, वी ऑलवेज रिमेंबर देम कि फलाना जब ये इंफॉर्मेशन आई तो मैं वहाँ पे बैठी हुई थी, या मैं वहाँ पे बैठा हुआ था, या हम लोग ये कर रहे थे जब ये इंफॉर्मेशन आई. सो आई वांट टू नो फ्रॉम यू, क्योंकि मिसेस गांधी की जो मौत है 1984 में, ऑन आई थिंक व्हाट डेट वाज इट, 31st of October था शायद 1984. उस दिन आप कहाँ थे? I would like to know from you, where were you when Mrs. Gandhi was murdered that day? Where were you? क्योंकि हम लोग obviously we don't know where we were जब जॉन कैनेडी की मौत हुई. A lot of us weren't around that time, so and a lot of us don't know. लेकिन इंडियन जो हमारी हिस्ट्री में मिसेस गांधी की जो मौत है 1984 में हुई थी, अक्टूबर 1984. सो उसमें वेयर वर यू? आई वांट टू नो. ये मैंने एक क्वेश्चन फ्लोट किया है. प्लीज टेल अस, व्हाट डू यू रिमेंबर ऑफ दैट डे मिसेस गांधी? मैं उस दिन कॉलेज में था उस टाइम पे 1984 में, एंड हमारे कॉलेज में एक नाइजीरियन स्टूडेंट था, पैट्रिक. He came and told us in his Nigerian way of, he big boy he was. Oh, do you know, have you heard Mrs. उस टाइम पे तो रेडियो पे ही आता थी ना इन्फॉर्मेशन, एंड रेडियो कॉलेज में कौन सुन रहा है भाई हॉस्टल में. तो इट बिकेम, oh, do you know this happened? एंड हम लोग सब लोग दंग रह गए, बिकॉज ये कभी सोचा ही नहीं था कि ऐसा भी होगा कभी. तो आई वॉज इन कॉलेज दैट डे, एंड इमीडिएटली द कॉलेज वॉज क्लोज्ड, एंड पूरा शहर ही बंद हो गया एक्चुअली. और हम लोगों को जहाँ पे रेस्टोरेंट था जहाँ से हम लोग खाना खाया करते थे, इवन दैट वाज क्लोज्ड. सो आई डोंट नो, बट ऐसे वाली जो इवेंट्स होती हैं, इंसिडेंट्स, जो बड़े बड़े इंसिडेंट्स हैं, एंड या अभा गार्गे जी कह रही हैं कि शी वॉज इन सिडनी इन 1984. तो कहाँ पे थी आप जिस दिन ये इन्फॉर्मेशन आई? उस टाइम पे 1984 में द इन्फॉर्मेशन फ्लो वॉज नॉट दैट क्विक. उस टाइम पे फोन्स भी कम किया करते थे लोग. वेयर वर यू अभा दैट डे? नीरज नंदा जी कह रहे हैं दैट ही वॉज एट होम. But I've opened that question. Please answer that. Where were you when Mrs. Gandhi was shot dead? क्योंकि हम लोग and 60 years since John F. Kennedy was shot just yesterday. Anyway, so बताते रहिए ये गीत, और फिर नीरज नंदा जी.
जानू ना किस मोड़ पे मैं आया, पर जाने हैं किस ओर है जाना. क्यों ये सवाल आया, तेरा ख्याल आया, रब हैरान है कि दिल ने क्या पाया, दिल ने सुकून पाया, तेरा जुनून छाया, ऐसे मकां पे दिल लाके ठहराया.